Our whisky begins in the pristine waters of the Blackman River, which flows from Tasmania's highlands down to the rich farming region of the Midlands. We then take the local barley and soak it in this fresh water for 3 days. This is called steeping. Steeping kickstarts germination, which speeds up the moisture intake of the grain. The germination happens under precise, controlled conditions. We slowly turn the grain to maintain even temperature conditions. As the barley germinates, its starch content transforms into sugars, which yeast loves to consume and convert into alcohol. The barley is now rich in enzymes for premium whisky. The barley is removed from the water and gently dried under low heat. This removes most of the moisture from the malt, turning it from green malt to dried malt. Now the malt is ready for the next stage of the process, milling. Once the barley has been malted, it needs to be milled. 2 pairs of specially designed roll mills crush the malt into fine particles that are about 10% flour, 70% grits, and 20% husks. Collectively, these particles are called grist. Next, the grist needs to be mashed, so the starch in the grist is exposed to the enzymes first created in the malting process, which continues the conversion of starch into sugars. To achieve this, the grist is mixed with pure water from the Blackman River and heated to 64.5 degrees Celsius. It is gently stirred for approximately 90 minutes, converting starch into sugars. The resulting water is called wort and is slowly released. Afterwards, a second batch of water is then added at 70 degrees, and the process of heating and running off the wort is repeated. All this wort is then pumped through to the fermenter and cooled to the right temperature, depending on the yeast, usually between 12.5 and 20 degrees. We give the leftover mash to local farmers, who feed it to their cattle. Then the fermenting process begins. The fermentation process starts when yeast, which has been mixed in water, is added to the wort in the fermenter. The microorganisms in the yeast start breaking down the sugar in the wort. This produces alcohol. We let this fermentation process run for 7 days, quite a bit longer than other distilleries. This lets the flavour grow and allows the natural bacteria and aerobic yeasts to further develop and influence the character and flavour profile of the resulting wash. The leftover yeast isn't wasted, it's fed to local pigs. The next phase of the process is distilling. During the first wash, distillation, the fermented wash is preheated by a heat exchanger as it is transferred into a copper still. We use handcrafted Tasmanian-made copper stills. Copper helps remove unwanted sulphur compounds, and the unique shape of our stills has a great effect on the aroma and unique flavour of our whisky. Once the wash is in the still, it is heated until it froths. When the frothing subsides, the heat is gently increased to allow the vapours to rise. The vapours are then condensed into a steady uniform flow, known as low wines, which are collected for the next batch of distillation. The spirit still, also known as the second distillation, is then charged with the low wines, as well as the fours and feints of the previous spirit distillation. Demisting tests are performed, mixing equal volumes of distillate with water until the water changes from a milky appearance to clear. The master distiller also noses and tastes, determining when to cut to the heart of the spirit. A spirit safe is used to monitor and control cut points, measuring the strength and ABV of the distillate and directing the flow of the spirit to the correct spirit receiving tanks. The heart is the final spirit that will become whisky after it has matured in a barrel. The rest of the material, known as fours and feints, is partially discarded and used in the distilling of our next batch. The next stage of the process is maturation. Spirit doesn't become whisky until it has matured in a barrel. To make this happen, we use oak casks, predominantly French, European and American oak. These barrels are charred on the inside to promote oxidization and absorption. This helps remove sulphur compounds and immature character from the spirit. During maturation, the spirit develops complexity, character and elegance. There are a lot of factors that contribute to this. The variety of the wood the cask is made of, the type of fortified wine or spirit it previously held, the maturation time, the strength of the spirit, as well as the weather, climate and environment where the cask is held. It all plays a role in the whisky's personality. As the spirit matures, it expands and contracts into the wood of the barrel. This is known as additive activity. This is triggered by the climate and the changing of the seasons, and it's how the spirit gains its colour, aroma and flavour complexity. Another part of maturation is evaporation. A barrel can lose between 30 and 50% of its volume in what's known as the angel's share. At the end of the process, we finally have our whisky ready to be bottled.